Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Gail Perry Mason.
Okay, I am not going to be long, I promise, but I have to say, 54 years ago, it was a racist white woman and a Jamaican man got together. And I know, weird combination. Anyway, they got together and they had Stephanie Rose Rick, which is me. My name used to be Stephanie Rose Rick. They left me right over here at Women's Hospital back in the day, now Hutso, which I now sit on the board. But they left me there because of my race. Neither one of them wanted me. So they left me in the hospital and I became a ward of the state because nobody wanted me. So I was labeled special needs and hard to place. So I went from foster care to foster care to foster care home. So finally, I got a great social worker. And this social worker, her name is Isla Mitchell. She came to my mom's house with a picture when I was age 3 and said, "Don't you want this little girl?" And she said, "I am 50 years old and I just adopted my cousin." His name was Ronnie, her cousin. And she says, "I'm not sure." So then she came back a year later and said, "I still have this little girl for you. Do you want her?" And her mother lived with her. Her name was Emma Walker. And her mother said, "You know what? That's God telling you to take this little girl." And I'm wearing Emma Walker's wedding ring today and her watch because of her circle of love. So Emma Walker said, "Take this little girl in." So anyway, they took me in and then I would not stop crying. I couldn't walk or I couldn't talk. So they called a doctor who lived down the street on Boston Boulevard, Arthur Thompson. They called him and said, "Can you come on over and help this little girl?" And you know what he prescribed? He prescribed love. So he said, just hold her and give her love and talk to her. So my grandmother, Emma Walker, put me in a rocking chair and she would rock me and hold me, and I was bald-headed. So she put Glover's mane and Sulfate on my head. So all I remember is having this stinky head and being talked to, and then all I needed was love. Then I never shut up. So I went to kindergarten and would get in trouble for talking. And then Emma Walker, at the age of 9, she passed away. I've never have ever seen my mom cry. She was such a strong black woman. So I would hear her crying at night, and I would ask God. I said, "God, what can I do to make her happy? How can we make her happy?" So she would come home, and that's how I learned how to cook. She would come home from work, and I would have dinner made. I would do anything to make her happy. I would make all these different celebrations for her. And then one day, her high school sweetheart showed up at the door. His name was Clarence Perry. And all I remember is they were in the dining room, the living room, dancing to Al Green. So they would start dancing, and I was like, "God, thank you." Then one day I came home. You know how your parents don't tell you anything. Came home, and she said, "Gail, I'm married." And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "Okay." She said, "We got to go to court because he's going to adopt you." And I was so thankful to have a father. So I went to court. I was 12, and that's how I became Gail Frankie Perry. So that's where I got my name from. So I've had a lot of names, even from marriage, everything. So anyway, so I got married, and then by the time I got to high school, and I always, because I'm half Jamaican, I worked a lot of jobs, so I was working in high school. So anyway, so I'm working and everything. So after that, so I was working at McDonald's, working at the VA, babysitting, everything. So I always work and make money to always buy my mother a gift all the time. So finally, I came on one day, she said, "I retired." I said, "You retired?" And I'm, like I said, I'm Jamaican. I look at her like, "What you gonna do?" and she was sitting at home, and I said, "Look, you gotta do something." So I said, okay. So I saw it was the place she can go to Marygrove College and start her own business. So I paid for her to take a class when I was in high school. I said, "Go take this class on how to start your own business." And she started a flower decorating business. And I was just so happy that she had something to do. And then I went away to college. And then I was so scared to call my mom. I went away to college. I got married, pregnant, and divorced. Nobody's business in here which came first. So anyway, so child, and my mother was like, look, you had to get married because you got to get this child a name. So anyway, I was like, okay, so I got married just for that. So anyway, I got married, had my first child, and then, but the thing was the gift I gave my mother. My mother never had the experience of having childbirth, ever. So I ended up, every time I had a child, so I had my oldest son, Brandon. She was in the room with me. She cut the cord. It was so beautiful. I had my second son, Dexter. I got married again. Anyway, had my second son, Dexter. And then she was in the room with me. She cut the cord. And then I got pregnant with my baby. And I was still married, same person. Anyway, so still married, and I had my baby. And as a matter of fact, he's here now. And my mother had died. And she was not there to cut the cord. So it was a difficult time during that time. But I had my son, and it was so beautiful. And I wanted somebody to fill that void. I don't know if anybody here has ever lost their mom before. So I wanted somebody to fill the void. And I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go search for my biological mother. And I never did it to disrespect my mom while she was living, because she would have killed me. So, because she was like, I'm your mama. So anyway, so I was like, okay. So I ended up going to the home where I was given for adoption, Methodist Children's Home. And I found a social worker. She was just getting ready to retire. Her name was Isla Mitchell. And she says, I'm going to write a letter to where your mother's home was. And I was like, okay. And it was in Rochester, New York, somewhere. And I was like, okay. She wrote a letter, and we had to sign something with the states. And it took a few years for her to return the letter. It took years and years. So after a few years went by, she finally signed the state of Michigan where I could call her. So I called her, and the address was in Plantation, Florida, of all places. So I called down to Plantation, Florida. I'm so excited to call. And she answered the phone like, hello. And I was like, this is Gail. I'm your daughter. I used to be staffing. I went on and on. And it's always a difference what you do for a living, what you do for a life. I never told her, like, what a title. I told her, I'm a mother. I have 3 beautiful sons. I loved my mother. These are my best friends. I went on and on telling her about my life. And I said, can you do me a favor? And she said, what? I said, can I come and visit you on the day you gave me up for adoption on my birthday? And she was like, sure, come on down. So I get on the plane. A year later, I fly down to Plantation, Florida. I'm so excited. I get off the plane, and you see how we just hugged up here? I hugged everybody. I love to hug. I get off the plane, go to hug her, and I get those little tap hugs. And she just touched me a little bit, and I was like, oh, how, I was just all excited. And her husband come, and this big white van. Anyway, so I know. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So anyway, so they come. And then I get in this van, and so a little bit scared. So it looked like Hicktown in a van, I was like, uh-oh. She loves Trump. So anyway, so I was like, oh, Lord. So anyway, so I'm in this van with these Trump lovers, and I'm like, oh, Lord. So anyway, I'm sitting in there, and I said, well, I just got to ask you a few questions. I said, what do you want to know? I said, what did I look like as a baby? And she was like, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't have any baby pictures. I just wanted to know. She said, well, I didn't want to look at you, nor did I want to touch you when you were born. And I said, oh, because she would get too attached, I'm thinking. She said, no, because you're black. And I was like, well, you touched somebody. And I was like, well, you touched somebody black. So she said, I was drunk. And I'm about to get drunk right now up in here. So I was like, can you give me a drink? So anyway, so I was like, oh. I was like, okay. I said, well, what happened? And she said, she said I was drunk one night. I, had an affair with somebody who was married. And I was like, oh, Lord, you don't even go no further. I just get me back to Detroit. So she actually took me to a place where, and it was like they were having like a boat show, and she said, Gail, my husband, is a piano tuner, and he tunes piano for these rich white people. She said, so I'm gonna take you to their home, but you're not allowed to talk to them. And I'm looking like, what? And she said, so anyway, so I was like, let me get up out of here. So anyway, So I get back to, I leave, get back to Detroit. And so I call and I said, you know what, I want to do the same favor to you. I want you to come to Detroit and meet my sons. I didn't say your grandsons, I said my sons, on your birthday. It was March 16th. And she said, okay, we got to go to Atlanta, and I'm our only child. And she's going to visit her stepkids. And I said, okay. So she said, I'll drive up from there. I said, okay, well, let me know. So she called her on cell phone. I said, call me when you get to Connor on 94. So I lived in Grosse Pointe at the time. And she said, well, Gail, we're not going to stay with you because we got this nice white van and, we might get carjacked coming to Detroit. So I said, like I said, call me when you get to Connor, 94, just give me a buzz. So she calls, like white people always on time. Anyway, she called me. And so she called me and she said, Gail, we right here. I said, okay, well, I need you to exit, on Connor. And she was like, okay. I said, then go around this little park called Chandler. God forgive me. So I took her straight up through the hood. So I was like, okay. And I said, then make a right on Alter. And go past the skating rink. So anyway, okay, so y'all, God forgive me. So anyway, then I had to go down Kercheval and come to Grosse Pointe or whatever. And then she was like, oh, okay. And I took her to my office and took her everywhere. And then I had to go get her eyebrows done. She's German. She had these big, bushy eyebrows. I had to get her eyebrows done, had to get her fixed up before she can come to my office. So anyway, came to my office. So Martha ended up, she was coming and she was just, met the kids and stuff. And then, she's like, oh, well, maybe we will stay with you. So anyway, but the thing was, I promised, I told my kids this. I said, Emma and Frankie broke me down with love. And that's what God prescribed. And that's what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to honor your mother and father. So I said, I'm going to do the same to her. Yes, she may be racist. Yes, she told me her family. And matter of fact, she even invited me to a family reunion. And my whole entire life, I have a vision board. I always wanted to go to a family reunion. I have never, ever attended a family reunion, ever in my life. So she called me last year and invited me to a family reunion for her whole family. And I was so excited. And then she called me back and said, you know what? There's not enough room. I was so upset. My best friend sitting over there, she said, let's go and tap dance. So anyway, but I didn't go. So I didn't go, but anyway. But long story short, now, her husband passed away, and then she needed financial help, and then she called me for different things, and now she comes and she spent Thanksgiving with me a few years ago. And I was so excited to have her at home, at my home for Thanksgiving. I fried chicken, I had watermelon, black-eyed peas. And she was like, what is this? And I heard her on the phone, like, they do eat this. But she did say that she she said her whole family was racist. And that's why, I was really uninvited because they are racist. And they really, they supported Trump. And my son was appointed by Obama. And so, my sons and I would walk around the house, fist palm all the time, the whole day when she was there, But, I had Obama's picture up everywhere, like Jesus, so, all over the place. So, but anyway, but the thing is that I would never change anything in the world. Martha and Frankie were two totally different people. I'm honored to carry Frankie Perry's name. I'm honored. But they were two totally different people. One did the hokey pokey, the other did the electric slide. So, they were from two different backgrounds, but it made me who I am today. And I love that. And I will say the one thing that Frankie Perry taught me how to do that I will keep in my heart for the rest of my life is how to drink, how to steal, how to swear, and how to lie. So I drink, from the everlasting cup every single day of my life. I steal a moment of time to help someone else out that's in worse shape than I'm in. I swear to be a better person than I was yesterday. And I lie down and I thank God every single night for every single thing. So thank you for having me.